And we are live. Welcome back, viewers, to another episode of This Month in Previews. It's a monthly gathering where we, crew members from the Comics.Community podcast, sit down with a Linus Diamond Previews catalog to highlight some of our most anticipated and noteworthy comics and comics-related stuff coming out 2 months from now in comics shops all over the country. I'm Phil, your host, and joining me for this month's show are folks that all our regular listeners will be familiar with. Let's meet them now. We've got Mitch.
Hello, everyone.
We've got Raphael.
And I'm back, guys. What's up?
And we've got Randy.
How you doing?
And as always, oops, I'm going to go back to Raphael again. As always, it wouldn't be near as easy as for us to get the copies of previews that we have our hands on if it weren't for our sponsor, Summit Comics and Games, located in downtown Lansing, Michigan. If you're in the area, look for Summit just a few blocks from the Capitol building at 216 South Washington Square. But remember, you can visit them online anytime at summitlansing.com. Onward to previews. This month's issue is number 342, dated March 2017. One moment, please. Okay, as we said, Previews is a special catalog. In fact, it's the catalog used by comic shops everywhere to pre-order the comics that will be coming out at least 2 months from now. That means that the things we're going to be talking about on today's show will be going on sale no sooner than this May 2017. Lucky for us, many comic shops and online stores make previews available to their customers so that comics fans like us can place pre-orders through them. Previews is just one book, but it's got a different cover on each side, and that's what you see here in the middle and on the left. Marvel books are listed in their own catalog, and that's what you see on the right. But both catalogs should be packaged together when you buy previews. If you can't find a copy of previews, then visit Diamond's online version at previewsworld.com/catalog. Before you place your orders with your shop, be sure to ask about any pre-order policies that they may have in place, and take note the cutoff date for submitting orders to your favorite retailer this month is March 18th. So each of our panelists have been asked to choose up to 3 number ones, 3 returning titles, 1 original graphic novel, and 1 trade or hardcover collection for each of the premier publishers listed in the front of the catalog. That's Dark Horse, DC, IDW, Image, and Marvel. And then we'll wrap up with some picks from the indie comics and merchandise sections in the back. Like always, we start with the premier publisher section. This lists publishers alphabetically, so we'll start with Dark Horse. Like we started last month, we're going to begin each publisher by calling out the titles that more than one of us had on their list. And that happened with 3 Dark Horse books this month, the first of which both Randy and I had on our lists again. Randy, we get Talkie Walkie's origin in this issue, but I wanted to ask, since this book has 2 covers to choose from each month, do you get both, or do you choose a favorite?
No, I usually just like the regular stock one that comes in.
Okay. For a while, and I don't know if they're calling this anymore, the second one was always like the flashback cover, I think. Anyway, this continues to be a favorite. Anybody else on this reading Black Hammer?
I've been reading it off and on. I think I'm going to wait for the trade mostly.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to do the same thing. I'm kind of a few issues behind, so for me to get into it now would be kind of a little bit of an effort for me.
Okay. Our next 2 titles are books that both Mitch and Raphael shared. It should come as no surprise that both our resident aliens experts chose a Predator book on their list. Mitch, Raphael, tell me about Predator Hunters number 1. And I wanted to ask you, do you recognize a creative team from other books?
If I could begin, I just want to say, Mitch, you have great taste. I noticed that we shared quite a few things on this month's poll, so that's pretty awesome. But I know that Chris Warner has done a few other Predator comics in the past. I can't name them off the top of my head. But I know he has some experience in the field because they were trying to get more of a veteran author for this new series that they're putting out. But I off the top of my head, I can't pull off anything that, he's written in the past. Of course, there's so many Predator comics. Mitch, are you familiar with anything, or?
No, I was going to say the same thing. Previews kind of boasted up saying that he's a veteran of the series, but I don't recall anything specifically he's written either.
Well, he's one of the names that is included in like the page of authors when they have like I think we talked about it on the last previews episode that we did, but they're releasing the Concrete Jungle collection for the Predator anniversary, and he's written I think 3 or 4 different runs that are in that. So he definitely has some stuff that he's contributed that they feel was good enough to include in the anniversary edition. So I assume he's pretty good.
Cool. That makes me look forward to it even more.
You guys also shared a second title. Mass Effect. Was this a first time Mass Effect is in comics, or have there been other series?
No, there have been other series for sure.
Yeah, they've actually had quite a few. A lot of them deal with like a few side characters and just kind of flesh out the universe a little bit more.
Yeah, they kind of fill in some of the side stories.
I'm a lot more excited for this one because the new game is coming out, and for someone like me who never read any of like the Mass Effect books or kind of kept up with the comics that they're coming out with, I kind of feel like I need something to kind of introduce me a little bit more to the Andromeda universe, because I'm trying to keep myself in the dark about everything that's coming out for the game, so I don't have too much hype built up. But I think this will be a great way to kind of segue me into the new universe and kind of get me excited for all the stuff that's going to be in the new game.
Did you guys see that Cards Against Humanity came out with a Mass Effect pack?
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Wow.
Where you can have like a Turian and a...
It only costs $1. So if you play that game and you like Mass Effect, go get it today.
Very cool.
All right. Then next, keep Mitch in the spotlight. Let's move to one of the books that we had on our individual lists.
Yeah, James Stokoe's Aliens Dead Orbit #2. Obviously, #1 hasn't come out yet, but a lot of people are very excited about this just because of the name James Stokoe doing the writing and the art. Previously did Orc Stain, which was kind of an indie book that a lot of people really enjoyed. So it'll just be interesting to see a different perspective on the Aliens universe and maybe a little bit of a weird H.R. Geiger type take.
Okay. Love the cover. And I remember the last one too was pretty excellent. I assume he's doing those too. All right. Did you have others?
Let's see. Do we go into the graphic novels and stuff now?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, sure. I had a original graphic novel on page 58, which was The Black Sinister. I don't know. Just the cover certainly struck me on this. It's a very weird-looking cover, but also the idea of a Batman-like superhero who's essentially holding his city for hostage. You know, like everyone in the city, from gangsters all the way down to jaywalkers, have to be afraid of this guy or he's going to bring the hammer down. So it's just an interesting take on that kind of vigilante superhero.
As soon as I saw this on your list, I put it on my order form too. I thought this looked really neat.
Well, that's what we're here for, right? That's what everybody should do.
Yes.
If you see something on any of our lists, go buy it immediately.
Can't go wrong.
Then my other... Yeah, can't go wrong. My other collection was Kill All Monsters, Volume 1 on page 65. And this is one that I've been wanting to get into because I've seen this here and there on stores, on the shelves, seen the trades and the individual issues. And it's just, giant robots punching giant monsters. I think we can all agree that that's a good thing.
Very good. Next, let's go to Raphael. I know he likes monster face punching action.
I certainly do, and I think I'm going to have to pick that one up. Another excellent recommendation from Mitch. So the next one that I had on my list is The Visitor, How and Why He Stayed, which is kind of like a little Hellboy side story that they've been doing. I think it's on the second issue right now. The one listed in previews is 4 out of 5, so it's going to be just kind of like a short little snippet. But from the first issue that I've read, it basically kind of details, if anyone's familiar with the Hellboy universe, you kind of see aliens now and then, and kind of just like random little side panels, but they finally decided to give them a little bit more spotlight and kind of explain what they're doing in the Hellboy universe. So the premise is when Hellboy was first entering the world through the little hell portal that he popped up in, the aliens from the universe were actually kind of monitoring it because they kind of saw him as a potential threat on a galactic scale. So the alien that they sent to investigate was specifically instructed to kill him as soon as he came out through the portal. But he wasn't informed that when Hellboy came through the portal that he was going to be a child. So he kind of does this little pitch to his alien boss that he'll watch Hellboy throughout his life. And the second that he feels that Hellboy becomes too much of a threat, he'll take him out himself. So the comic then kind of details Hellboy growing up and the alien kind of hiding in the shadows and kind of like watching him grow up. So it's still a Hellboy story where you get a lot of development of Hellboy's character from the point where he was a child. You get to see him kind of like learn how to ride a bike. You get to see him kind of interacting with people for the first time. But you see it all through the eyes of this alien who's kind of trying to still like size Hellboy up and figure out if he's going to be the demon threat that ends the universe, like as kind of as prophesized. So it's an interesting take, and it's still kind of a fun character. If you're an avid Hellboy fan, you'll recognize the aliens, I think, from I believe it's Conquer the Worm. The alien's actually in it for I think one panel where he actually dies, and they say, oh, that alien's been there your entire life. So it's kind of cool that they go back and actually kind of detail that character a little bit more.
Neat. You had another one as well?
Yes, I did. It is a collected hardback, which is the Guild Library Edition. If you're familiar with the Guild at all, it was a web series that starred Felicia Day, where it features her and her group of friends and guild mates meeting for the first time and kind of getting into a lot of awkward hijinks from there. The comic is actually kind of a prologue to that web series, where it's all featured kind of like in-game. So all the characters are kind of like their in-game personas, and it's how each of the characters meet and how the guild is initially formed. The actual web series has been over for, I think, like the past, I want to say 2 or 3 years, but it had like a really big fan base. So if you ever watched it, or if you just kind of want to get into it, this is a really perfect start, or it's just a nice thing to add to your collection if you're a fan.
Even though it was a web series, they did release those on disc eventually, didn't they? Is there a DVD set as well?
Yep, they did. It did have, I believe, I want to say at least 4 seasons. Okay. And they were actually, I think, about 12 or 13 episodes long each. So there's plenty of show there for you to catch up on.
There's also a music video, I think, that they did called I Want to Date Your Avatar. I don't know if you've seen that.
They actually did 2 music videos. The other one's a Bollywood style one. Yeah.
Oh, neat. I'll have to watch that.
Tons of fun.
Cool. All right. Next up, I had 2 picks myself. Dark Horse has been home to many works from Matt Kindt. I discovered him because of I was a big fan of Mind Management, but now we've got Department H to enjoy. Like he did with Mind Management, the single issues here have content in the back matter and some other fun places that you don't get in the reprints, so there is a benefit to buying the floppies. If this is a murder mystery, it takes place in a flooding underwater base. The first trade, it might be a hardcover, I'm not sure, is already out. But if you've never read Matt Kindt, or you only know him from his work with Valiant, and he did some stuff with DC's New 52 back in the day. His creator-owned stuff is really shows an interesting aspect of him. It's got a really distinct look, I think, so check that out. I also had Shadows on the Grave #4. I can't say I really follow his work, but when it shows up on my radar, I almost always pick up anything by Richard Corbin. Dark Horse seems to have been his home for the last few years. These books are black and white, which is actually how I prefer his work, I think, but they're short little horror tales. And if you like what you see here, Dark Horse is also coming out with a collection of all his Edgar Allan Poe stories. I think you said maybe, Mitch, you were going to pick that up too.
Yeah, that one looked pretty cool.
Called Spirits of the Dead. That's going to be out, within the next couple of weeks, I think. That'll be also be a good way to pick up the tales of Edgar Allan Poe if you're not familiar with them. And that then takes us to DC Comics. We've all got DC this month, but all our picks are unique. So, Randy, I'm going to ask you to get us started.
Sure. My first pick was All-Star Batman. The last 2 issues, 8 and 9, have been really awesome. It's kind of just, they're interconnected, but they're little standalone stories as well, where he went up against Mr. Freeze and then Poison Ivy. It's cool also because it comes with a Tim Sale variant cover, if you can find that one, which is always a plus if you're a fan. But it's just been really interesting stories in it. So it's a good Batman comic. So, and then coming up next is the Superman book, number 22 and 23. If I can find my pages here. Yeah, so I this is taking place after the big story, the big change up with Superman. So kind of the same with Batman. It's just a really, it's a good time to be reading Batman and Superman, I guess. So if you're a fan, you should pick it up.
Yeah, I got back on too. In fact, there was just a big reveal in the Last Action comics. Are you reading Action as well? Action and Detective?
I did. I don't read Detective. That one I can't really get into, but
Okay.
I read Action Comics, and I was taken by surprise with the last one. I quite like what they did. So,
cool. And that's actually going to have a ripple effect into Superman next week, I think, or this week.
yeah, it should. So,
Very good. Okay, I'll kick over things to Raphael next.
I think I say it pretty much every single previews, but I can't read normal Batman. But if you are like me and you are not as familiar with the DC universe and you need something a little bit more self-contained but still a lot of fun, Batman Beyond is definitely for you. I've been reading it since the first issue, and while I'm still a few issues behind, it's just something I can always come back to, and it's always super fun to read. It's the current run is by Dan Jurgens with artwork by Bernard Chang. And I really have to just kind of compliment the artwork because it's really sleek and futuristic, but it's dark and almost has kind of like a Blade Runner feel to it. Terry McGinnis is a little bit more of a seasoned Batman at this point, so he's kind of trying to balance his personal life and kind of figure out what kind of Batman he wants to be. So if you're like me and you can't really deal with like the DC universe kind of like tying into each other just because you haven't been reading it very long, I would definitely recommend a little bit more of a standalone title like Batman Beyond.
Very nice. And you're staying with a theme this month too, aren't you?
Looks like it.
I'm just referring to your next pick.
All right. My next pick is Batman Beyond, trade paperback, Volume 1, Escaping the Grave. I just recommend picking this up if you didn't have a chance to actually grab the other Batman Beyond titles. The first issues 1 through 5 were a pretty good run where Terry McGinnis is fighting the Joker gang, which is kind of like a classic throwback to kind of like old Batman Beyond TV show. So it's a great introduction. It gets going with the action right away, so you don't have to worry about it like kind of catching up with the character too much. It's just a really nice introduction. And out of everything from kind of like the DC Rebirth that I read, I think this is the one that's like stuck the most. I'm having a little trouble keeping up with Green Lantern, so it's always nice that I can go back to this title. So I definitely recommend it for other people like me who are trying to kind of switch from Marvel.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. All right. Thank you. I had 3 picks from DC this month. First was Wildstorm number 4. Just read Wildstorm number 1. This really is a reboot. They're not really bringing back the former versions of old characters. I kind of got the bent they're rebooting those characters too. Mitch, did you read this?
Yeah, I read
Everybody
Wildstorm number 1. I thought it was pretty good. I don't know enough about it to really recommend it yet, but I think I'll keep looking at it.
Okay. Yeah, I got the impression too. It's just a lot of character introduction, but not sure where the story's taken. Still like it though. Also, for me, Mother Panic number 7. I think you're reading this too, aren't you, Mitch? I'm a little bit behind here, but the story is going places I didn't expect it. It's also one of the most of the Young Animal books, probably the most firmly rooted in the DCU. Would you say?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, she's definitely crossing paths with other of the established heroes in Gotham, and they're not looking too kindly on her or her tactics.
Yeah. Again, turn into something I didn't expect. Looking forward to seeing again, sticking with it, see where it goes. And then lastly, I had Savage Things number 3 of 8. This is a Vertigo mini series. Issue 1 just came out. It's got some tropes in it. It's about kids who were experimented on in their youth, who then attack and kind of come back to wreak havoc in the world. This is about some of the experiments who are sent to kind of stop the other experiments from doing that. This kind of reminded me of, and now I can't remember the series name all of a sudden, from J.W. Straczynski back in the day. Oh, that's going to bother me now. Tune in next.
It sounds like Stranger Things.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. It kind of does too. Anyway, God, it's going to bug me. Tune in next episode of the Comics Community Podcast. I'll have the answer for you. But anyway, interesting series from Vertigo. Vertigo's kind of thinning out its line now, so it was nice to see them add some more books.
Yeah, I picked up the first one. I haven't read it yet. So.
Okay. And with that, then, I'll hand things over to Mitch to finish out our DC segment.
Sure. On page 112, I've got the Trinity Annual #1. I've been meaning to catch up on this series, or at least take a look at this series, because if nothing else, it has the Stan Lee value for our theory behind it, which is if you like these different superheroes, instead of buying all their books, you can get all of them in one book. Save you a little money there, and it's an annual, so I'm all about trying out annuals. And speaking of annuals, my next book on page 113 is the Wonder Woman annual. Kind of the same thing here. I'm just trying to catch up on the series. I've kind of dropped off of Wonder Woman a little bit. I've been reading, there have been a lot of trades and collections and retrospectives of Wonder Woman coming out recently, so I've been reading those instead of the traditional book. Then got Batwoman #3 on page 89, and that's a series I've been waiting for a while, so it's finally getting into full swing. This coming week is Batwoman #1 instead of last time was the Rebirth #1.
I've got a question, having not read that the Rebirth one yet. Is her hair really that color, or is that part of just the costume?
Both.
Okay.
Her hair is that color, but she keeps it short. So that hair you see there is just a wig. It's just part of the costume.
Okay. The reason I ask is because I really like the covers to these books. I think she's got quite a striking and unique look, but I wondered if that was just the costume or if that extended into her.
Yeah, in her origin story, they actually show you why she wears the wig. It's because people will, during a fight, they'll try to grab her hair. So that's why she keeps it short.
Okay. Cool.
Let's see. Then I have on page 122 Bombshells, #26 and #27. And Phil, you mentioned last episode of our regular podcast, you asked if Bombshells was double shipping, and I think you're right about that.
It just seemed like to have a high issue count for the length of time it hasn't been around.
Right.
That's what made me think.
I don't think it double ships every month, but it definitely double ships some months. Like this month, it's double shipping, and in March it's double shipping. So I don't know. It's a mystery why, but it's a good series. It's a fun series. I think more people should be reading it.
More Marguerite Bennett.
Yeah, more Marguerite Bennett. And then finally, my collections on page 137 have the Absolute Justice League hardcover. Basically, I wanted this one for the art. It's one of the best artists out there. And if you're interested at all in Alex Ross or his paintings or anything like that, this is a tremendous team up between him and Paul Dini. And it's just sort of the best of the Justice League. So the best writing and the best art that you could get with the Justice League. Highly recommend it.
Back in the day, Ross did works for both Marvel and DC. I'm thinking Marvels, right?
Yep. Yeah, he works for just about everybody.
Okay. Is he exclusive now? Because I just seem to think I've seen more from him coming from the DC land than others, but maybe I'm.
Yeah, I don't know if he's exclusive, but he does do a lot of stuff for DC. There's no doubt about that.
Okay. Really I think just has that iconic look down.
Yeah, and if you follow his Twitter at all, you've been seeing recently he's been posting pictures that he drew at age 10 or 12 of Justice League characters, and then posting them side by side with stuff he's doing now.
Oh, cool.
Just to sort of show you how an artist can grow, It's pretty cool.
What was the price on this? I see it's an Absolute.
Yeah, it was pretty pricey. Let's see, page 137, $75.
Okay. I noticed too the date. This seems to be an advanced solicit.
Yeah.
Unless the date's a misprint. Okay.
September is when it's on sale.
Nice. Gives us time to save.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. That then wraps up DC and takes us then to IDW. IDW kind of waxes and wanes with us. We only had one title this month that more than one of us chose, and that was Samaris. which brings us to another chapter in the Obscure Cities series. Mitch, I dare say that you know more about the history of this series.
Yeah, I did a little looking into this when you mentioned to me that this was technically the first volume, and that took me by surprise since I already own 2 volumes. it's hard for them to come out to the first volume. But what I read is that IDW and Alaxis Press decided to start with the volumes that have never been printed in English before.
Okay.
So if there are people who have been waiting for these books, for how many years since this has come out, they didn't want to make them wait again for those for those volumes to come out. So they printed those first, and now they're going back to the beginning, which is the Wall of Samaris.
So, and I had no idea in reading those other books that I was coming in, I don't know, a little late in a storyline. So that was what surprised me, that this was the first volume, because I was kind of like you.
Yeah, same thing here. I think if you read The Leaning Girl first, it seems to work. They introduced the world very well. And the second one that they published, I'm blanking on the name right now.
Yeah, me too. Even though you gave it to me.
Yeah. Anyway, that one is kind of a continuation. At least it has the Leaning Girl in it as a grown woman. So those 2 volumes fit very well together.
Anyway, though, here's the true ground zero, the true jumping on point. So it'll be nice to have that in my book, or not have to go chasing down a $200 back.
Yeah,
issue.
and at $19.99, it's a pretty nice price.
Yeah. All right. You also had something else from IDW, Mitch?
Yeah, I had page 164, Star Trek Green Lanterns. Continuing this fun crossover series. I didn't mention it, but I'm also starting to read the Star Trek Planet of the Apes as well. So in my mind, the series are starting to get confused. So
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it's a good idea
Now I
to
know
start reading them.
you had talked about the potential that they had of all these crossovers and kind of the world building they're doing between DC and the Star Trek universe. That you just said that this, is it starting to get confusing? Are you backing off?
A little bit, but what's interesting is the Star Trek Green Lantern universe is a self-contained universe. The Green Lanterns are there. They're in the Star Trek universe. They are no longer in the DC universe, according to this franchise.
Okay.
But the Star Trek Planet of the Apes, they are still in the DC universe. And in fact, in the latest issue, you have Guy Gardner trying to find some of the lanterns who've gone missing and apparently have been transported to this weird ape world. And the Guardians actually describe the ape world as something that's pivotal to the rest of the universe, because it's a pocket universe that's trapped in this time where superheroes never evolved on Earth. So the Earth destroyed itself. And it's just stuck in that cycle over and over and over of humans destroying themselves and apes reasserting their dominance over the planet. So it's kind of interesting to see an outside look at the Planet of the Apes future.
Were you a fan of that franchise?
I mean, a little bit. Of course, everybody's seen the original movie, and it's a fun concept. There's no doubt about it. But I wouldn't say I'm a big fan of that universe.
Okay. I'm living vicariously through you and the Star Trek team-ups, or Green Lantern, as it were. I had 3 from IDW and a special mention. Saucer Country. This was a Vertigo series that ran a few years back, and one of the few mainstream comics to be nominated for a Hugo Award. This is written by Paul Cornell, who, as it turns out, is probably much better known as a novelist in the regular bookstore sphere than in comics. But Vertigo canceled it prematurely, in my opinion. So I was really happy to see that IDW is picking it up and letting Mr. Cornell finish his tale in the form of a new 6-issue series, Saucer State. This is about a senator who was abducted by aliens. Now that she's been elected president, she's going back to use her office now and to use the power of her office to find out the truth behind her abduction. So if you like Letter 44 or maybe the X-Files, this is certainly worth checking out from IDW. Next, I've been a Starstruck fan ever since it came out as a graphic novel from Marvel in the 80s. Not too many artists get stuck on my radar, but Michael Kaluta is one of them. And I also look forward to the library edition, which will be my first that IDW is releasing soon of Michael Kaluta's work, specifically from Starstruck, I believe. I think there's another book this month with Kaluta art in it, or it might be something that we mentioned in the last episode's podcast. Anyway, this is actually a Kickstarter series that I was part of. Looking forward to getting that in hardcover when it comes out. It's a crazy sci-fi story, and I'm not even sure after all these years that I understand all of it, but it's a fun book. This was even a Broadway musical at one point, or an off-Broadway musical. It doesn't require story comprehension to its joy. It's just fun to look at, if nothing else. And then I thought I'd mention Kill Shakespeare. Past his prologue, Juliet. We were lucky enough to get a sneak peek at the first issue of this. It looks very promising. This is from Connor McCreary, Corin Howell, and Simon Davis. This list for issue 3 lands in the March issue of previews, but do look for number 1 to hit store shelves later this month on March 29th. And if it's not too late, it's probably not too late to ask your shop to order the second issue if you like what you see. Did anybody on this show get a chance to look at that?
Yeah, I read it.
I started reading it too.
Okay.
I would say that if you're a fan of Shakespeare and you kind of want like a what if story, because that's pretty much the premise, right? That Juliet didn't die at the end of Romeo and Juliet, so you kind of see like what becomes of her character, and it was pretty interesting, and it definitely had some world building to do in the first first issue, but it looks like it could be a good story.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting too. Like, if you think comic book characters just replay the same stories over and over, obviously Shakespearean characters, they never get to do anything other than what happens in the original plays. So this is a chance to see Juliet in a different story other than, the tragic romance. So I think it could be, if nothing else, it's just a sort of interesting thought experiment.
Nice an extension of the original work. What would happen next?
Right.
Nice. All right. Well, next up, Raphael, you've got a fun pick, I think.
Well, I'll start off by saying that everybody loves Funko Pop vinyls, but I was actually really interested in this next one. It's Judge Dredd, but from the Funko universe. I just love the tagline where it says, he might be cute, but never forget he is the law. I just want to see how they pull this off, because Judge Dredd is just such a violent, brutal character, and to see him in just such a small, cute form, I think will be hilarious. Also, it's a good excuse to pick up some more Funko vinyl pops. So,
oh, that's nice. I have to imagine there'll be if there aren't already, the corresponding figure for the book.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to pick one up. I think it'll look great on the shelf.
Nice. Next, let's let Randy wrap up some IDW picks.
We got Ghostbusters 101, number 3. They haven't really given much on the story, except that the new movie Ghostbusters are going to be merging dimensions with the comic book Ghostbusters. And issue 1 comes out next week, and I can tell you more once I read that. But I'm looking forward to it.
Nice.
Seems like it's been coming out forever.
Yeah, right.
That is true.
We've had this in our last 3 preview shows.
Yeah.
But I think maybe my favorite pick of all previews for me is coming up next. It's Jack Kirby's Fantastic Four World's Greatest Artist Edition hardcover. I've never gotten an artist edition before, but I do love me some Jack Kirby, and especially love me some Jack Kirby when he's drawing Fantastic Four. I remember reading a book on him before where he would just say he just loved to draw weird gadgets in Reed's lab and weird massive gadgets for the Thing to just move around. So he's just got a way of drawing that appeals to me. So I'm going to be picking this up, and I'll be sure to share it with the podcast when it gets here.
Yeah, sure. Tell time. That'll be cool. All right. Well, next up then in our alphabetical listing of premier publishers, Randy, I noticed you actually had an Image pick this month.
What?
I know. Right? Say what? It's true. Much to my surprise, Alec tried to get me into Saga for the longest time. And so I read it, and the first time I read it, I actually hated it. But the more it kind of sat there in the back of my head, the more I liked it, and I still can't explain why. But anyway, I'm all caught up with the series, and so we got number 43 coming out, starting a new story arc, and it's only a quarter. So if you don't read Saga, this may be a good time for you to start. So
The
Saga's
old
good.
25-cent issue.
That's right.
Yep.
Can't go
And
wrong with that.
And even the trades, well, any trade pretty much from Image Comics are very reasonably priced. So it's not even hard to get caught up if you want to.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I got caught up with them. So it's worth it. It's cool artwork. It's adult themes for all the kiddies out there. But yeah, it's definitely a conversation piece.
All right. Well, we only had one Image title this month that more than one of us shared on our lists, and that was Packless #1, which Raphael and I both shared. This is an anthology of stories, but all from the same creator, it looks like, Dustin Weaver. I feel like I should know who Dustin Weaver is. Raphael, have you heard of him before?
I had no idea, but I saw Anthology, and I was like, you know what? I like those. I'm going to pick this up.
It's what drew me to it. I mean, when I think anthology, I think, different people. In this case, I think it's just 3 different stories that the same person's telling. So just as well, and an intriguing cover. You had a couple more as well, Raphael?
Yes, I did. If you actually go back just a few pages to page 200, you'll see Spawn #1, 25th Anniversary Director's Cut. Spawn has been out for a very long time, and there's actually a little mention here that it's actually the, let's see, how does it say it? Longest running independent comic ever. And I kind of sat there and thought about that for a second. I was like, yeah, that makes sense because they're still making Spawn comics right now. And whatever you think of Spawn, especially like, in his current state where it kind of seems like it's kind of been going on a little while and it's getting a little tired. Going back to like the very first few issues, it's always just such great artwork. It's still such a fun story. He's one of my favorite superheroes, and especially since he's, one of the ones that I started out with. I used to love reading Spawn comics when I was a kid. So to get like an anniversary issue that comes with special commentary from Todd McFarlane, and a few like surprises along the way, and some cool art boards. I think it's it's just a pretty neat thing to pick up for anyone who loves the character, and I know there's tons of people who do. And actually on the page opposite, they also have the Vault Edition hardcover, which is kind of like the same thing, only it costs I think like $170 more. So if your tax return was especially generous, feel free to pick that up.
Ka-ching.
And then I believe I had another pick, which is Extremity #3, which you can find on page 216. It comes from Daniel Warren Johnson, and we've talked about this a lot, either on previews or I think in our last episode, where it just seems like such an interesting story with such kind of unique art. Just to kind of reiterate, it's about kind of like a post-apocalyptic society where our main character is an artist, and she loses her hand. And in the process, she kind of loses her identity and kind of her place in the world. So it's her trying to get revenge, not just for her family who was kind of killed, but for, that identity that she has stripped away from her. So I know Jason was talking about how excited he was for this. So I'll definitely be picking up the 3rd issue.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but Chris B reviewed this on the show of the podcast that debuts right about the same time this is hitting the airwaves. Is that right?
I don't think it was a review. It was more just a take on how different and interesting it was.
Okay.
Which is kind of all his reviews now I think about it. So yeah.
All right. Next up, I'll turn things over to Mitch.
Sure. Let's see. Where are we at here on the list? Okay. How about page 203 with Girl Scouts Magic Socks #1. Now, this is a return for the artist Jim Mahfood, and also a return to this series, Girl Scouts. It was one of those sort of punk rock indie books. I'm not sure how long ago, back in the 90s, I'm pretty sure. I never read it, but I became aware of it thanks to a YouTube video where someone took those old issues and they made like a little short YouTube series out of it. And it was really just wild and weird and kind of violent and interesting. But so I want to see what the original artist has to say about it, and I don't know, just it's it spoke to me. What can I say? Also, it has a variant cover by Scotty Young, which is always cool.
You know, I was going to say this looks like something that's right up Jason's alley, and now that I see that the creator has done work on Tank Girl, my guess is that Jason's already very familiar with.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. It's definitely very, very Tank Girl style. I think if you like Tank Girl, you'll definitely like the Girl Scouts. Let's see. Then next we have some old favorites here. Page 229, 7 to Eternity. Still reading that one, still going strong. Rick Remender. Then we've got Black Road number 10 on page 213. That's another one that I recommend every month. Along with my collection this month is Motor Crush Volume 1 on page 236. If you're not keeping up with Motor Crush, I think this trade is a good way to get involved and pick it up. From the old Team Batgirl is now Team Motor Crush, and this is a really cool, fun sort of science fiction / motor racing series. I don't know. It's just super fun.
I know that team. I assume they kind of came together for Batgirl. I don't know if they worked together before Batgirl, but it seems like this book they're having more fun than Batgirl. Like they get to spread their wings more than maybe DC would have let them do. This feels like like really theirs.
Yeah, it's definitely a creator-owned, Image Comics, so they get to do pretty much whatever they want.
Yeah.
And it's super fun. And I think that's it for me.
Okay. I was going to mention you mentioned 7 to Eternity. I just noticed that there's an alternate version to the trade paperback available. I've never seen that before. An alternate trade cover, DCBS this month. So if you're interested in picking up that, what could be maybe a little bit of a rare find, they've got one there. I've got a couple picks from Image myself. The first one being. To continue where you left off, Regression number 1. This is about Adrian, who reluctantly agrees to past life regression hypnotherapy, and then something follows him back. So it's new horror. It's from Colin Bunn. That was what caught my attention. He's kind of hit and miss for me, but I always try his stuff out. So I look forward to this. And wow, what a cover.
Yeah, it's very disturbing.
Next up, Dying of the Dead number 4. This is a title that I thought had been abandoned at issue 3 way back in September of 2015, but I guess not, because here it is back 2 years later with issue 4, and coinciding with the release of this, they're also releasing issues 1 through 3 under one cover. They were a little thick, so I don't know if that's going to be in trade form or just super thick comic form. But
yeah, I was going to say, didn't we review the very first oversized issue?
Yeah, way back in the day, probably season 1.
Yeah.
And I had this in my active box forever, and then it took me a long time to realize, there's not going to be an issue 4, and then I'm wrong. Also, then Black Cloud number 2. Don't know what number 1's like. I like the concept. Someone essentially who comes through to our world from their own and the way that they interact with that, but too early to tell for really what that's like. Really enjoy the cover out, and if you see issue 1, they're kind of going with the same theme. I like it when you can look at a series of books and they all kind of match up on the shelf, so to speak. And then that leaves Old Guard number 4 from Greg Rucka. Did anybody read the first issue of this?
Nope.
I really enjoyed it. This is a group of mercenaries who travel the land, and issue 1, we learned they're really immortal. They've been around for hundreds of years, and they don't really get into how that happened, but I thought something was interesting is that the jobs they do for clients, they try to never do a job for the same client twice, because they try to kind of remain secret. They don't want their immortality to kind of get out there. Anyway, coming from Greg Rucka, I thought it was a very excellent first issue. I hope to maybe talk more about it on an upcoming show, but Old Guard number 4.
What time period is this set in?
Well, current time period.
Okay.
But it's a group of 4 of them, and I don't know their names. A woman and 3 men. The woman seems to be the leader of the group as far as I can tell, but they seem to maybe all have their little specialty battle-wise, but they basically take on jobs and the network with which they're even approached to take on a job seems to be very secretive. So it's hard to even reach them to hire them, let alone hire them at all. Anyway, worth checking out. And still probably enough time to hop on to a Greg Rucka #1. Those tend to go into future printings. My last pick is an interesting item. I talked about this on last episode in the news, I think. But I bring this up again here because I think it shows a good example of what's inside the Image 25th anniversary blind box. And now, as it says here, this is a blind box full of, there are 25 comics in the box. What will those comics consist of? Well, they will consist of the 17 new series that Image is putting out this year. And if you want a breakdown of, and so let's take the example in the image there on the right. There are 6 variants for each of those 17 series. And so we've got God Country as the example. There's there then is the example of 6 variants for God Country, one of them being a sketch variant, which there will only be 25 copies of per title. But perhaps the big draw on this box set is this will be the only place you can get The Walking Dead Here's Negan #1 in comic book form, and there will only be 500 of them. So they are printing 1,992 of these boxes to commemorate 1992, and there'll be 25 random books per box. I don't know if this is going to be possible or not. I'm going to try to get my hands on one of these, and if we can, we'll do an unboxing on a future show. Stay tuned. Next, we're moving on to Marvel Comics. 2 titles appeared on several of our radars. It's no surprise that both of them are on Randy's list. So the first...
No
Randy.
surprise there.
Randy and I are both looking forward to Generation X #1. Now, for me, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is about as close as we're going to get to the New Mutants title of the old days.
You say New Mutants, it kind of reminds me of Wolverine and the X-Men.
Okay, that makes sense too.
Look at the cover there. They have iBoy on this team. He's in the upper right.
Wow.
But anyway, I just thought it was cool. I mean, they're opening a new school called the Xavier Institute for Mutant Education and Outreach. And I can't really tell, but maybe is Jubilee leading the school? So
I think so.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
This really reminds me of Terry Moore, but it's actually Terry. Is it Dodson? Is that his name?
Yes, Terry Dodson.
So it's interesting to see that style there. Also, next, Randy and Raphael both had Cable #1. What are you hoping for this time around, guys?
Randy, I was told by somebody that you read X-Men. Do you read X-Men?
Perhaps.
I'll let you take the reins on this one, and I'll jump in afterwards then, because Cable is one of those crazy characters that's been around forever, but no one actually knows anything about him.
I know everything about him. Let's see. So Cable is in Uncanny Avengers right now, and the cool thing is he has his time traveling capabilities still. So it looks like this is going to finally follow him as he travels through time, doing what he needs to do to save reality. So that is just an awesome concept to me, because normally we just see him pop in and out of our now in the comics. A lot of times we don't get to see him on his journey, so that's the appeal for me.
It's just such a fun, interesting character who's been around for so long, and he really only gets his own kind of independent series, kind of every now and then. I mean, he had Cable and Deadpool that ran for a really long time, but it's a little bit more rare to kind of see him get just a story about him and nothing else. So I'm kind of hoping that it's to kind of get people hyped for the new Deadpool movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because of course he's going to be the character that kind of pops up as Deadpool's sidekick, for lack of a better word, in the movie. So I'm just excited to get any more Cable and see him kind of introduced to a more mainstream audience.
I can agree with that. Don't know.
Okay. Randy, why don't you take it from here?
Deadpool 2 is supposed to release in 2018.
Okay.
That's all I got. Okay, but moving on. We have Jean Grey, #1. Really cool concept. You have the young Jean Grey, the time-traveled one from the past, and she gets a premonition that the Phoenix is coming for her. So that old yarn, it's pretty much happened with everybody in the Jean Grey bloodline in comics. And so now that she's the only one left, just makes sense that it's going to come knocking on her door. So it sounds really interesting. And she's a pretty cool character. Moving on from there, we have US Avengers, #6. The thing that really, besides this being an awesome book, the thing that drew me was where they said, plus, are we actually going to kill Cannonball? Just because I don't know if you guys remember the whole Externals storyline from way back in early X-Force. They said that Cannonball was an external. Those were the immortal mutants. And it was kind of a storyline that they never resolved or actually said if he was immortal or not. So I wonder if they're going to bring that back. So that sounded interesting. And then we have Champions #8. If you're not reading Champions now, you should be, because it's one of the best team books out there. Not really much to say besides that. It's just good book, cool art, fun reads.
Good team too. Creative team.
Yeah. Well, you guys look closer at that than I do, but I just know I like reading it. After that, we have Mighty Thor, #19. This has been a really, really cool story, the Asgard Shi'ar War, where you have the Asgardian, you have the Shi'ar gods, Shira and Kithri, basically challenging Thor to say, are you truly a god or not? It's a really, really cool story. Great artwork. It's by my man, Jason A. Aaron. So it's really good. And rounding up my picks is on page 85. You have X-Men Blue, #4. So 3 and 4 are in the book, but the cover for #4 is what's really calling to me. Is this where we're going to get the original Wolverine back in comics? Only time will tell.
I didn't even notice that. They're just staring me in the face. Yes.
Well, I mean, look at the solicit for X-Men Blue #4. Snick, snick, snick.
Is this the one with Kitty Pryde as leader?
No, that is X-Men Gold. Okay. X-Men Blue is your original 5.
See, I wasn't going to get X-Men Blue, but now I'm thinking I'm going to have to see in that. All right. Gosh, Marvel. Raphael, you've got several more that haven't come up yet.
All right. The first one on my list is going to be Secret Empire #1. And I picked this because I knew it would make Mitch mad. Also, after, Civil War II and everything, I think the one criticism that I keep saying is that I just get tired of all the events. But this one I think is supposed to kind of wrap up everything with like a nice bow. Finally, the Marvel Universe is going to have to deal with the fact that, Steve evil now. So we, it's time to finally see the repercussions of that I think we've kind of been at this whole time. So it'll be nice to kind of move the story forward and see how it all resolves. Fix it so Mitch can stop boycotting Marvel.
Also, I didn't know if you noticed it or not, but we actually get 3 issues of Secret Empire in the month of March.
Wow. My wallet can already feel it. All right, so next up, I had Black Bolt #1, page 29. When it comes to the Inhumans, I know a lot of people don't like him, but with Black Bolt, he's just such a cool character. He's really powerful. He has kind of a feel to him just because he can't speak. So much of what he does is kind of based on his actions. So I'm really excited to see how his own comic. He's one of the reasons why I read like old Inhumans titles, was just to see more of Black Bolt. So to see him kind of get his own should be a lot of fun. And let's see. Next up, I have Punisher #12, the comic that I love to hate. It can be challenging reading this run of Punisher sometimes, but that the last few issues actually got a lot better. I think they switched artists and they finally kind of figured out that the old formula of having Punisher kill drug dealers over and over again was getting a little tired. So he's finally kind of being put in some new situations, and they're starting to play around with the character a little bit more. So now is a good time to kind of jump in. You haven't missed too much. If you're a little confused and you want to go back and read the other ones, you definitely can. But he's just killing drug dealers. So jump in now where the story is actually kind of picking up. And then I had one more, which is actually a collection, and that's Infamous Iron Man trade paperback #1, which is appropriately named Infamous. I was talking about this on our last episode where, if a few years ago, you said Doctor Doom is going to become Iron Man, I would have said, you're crazy. That sounds like, kind of like a what if or a one shot. Victor Von Doom try to play a good guy is such an interesting experience and such like a different route for the character to take. Really fun read, and of course it's coming from Brian Michael Bendis, so it's going to be good. Having read the first few issues, I can definitely recommend you pick this up. I'm definitely going to pick it up just because there was a few that I missed out on because I was trying to keep up with the other Iron Man title. But I know I'm definitely going to be coming back to this one, so it has my stamp of approval, guys.
I liked it too.
I just realized it's Alex Maleev on art too. He's done some things that I've enjoyed before.
Was he originally on the Iron Man book before this too? Because the whole thing, it feels like a straight continuation.
I don't know.
I think so. I think he's the artist that they switched to, because the person who did the art for the Iron Man series originally was the same one who did Civil War II.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So there was a switch in between there, but I think they continued with the same artist.
Yeah, the story arc from before with his real parentage.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
International Iron Man.
Yeah.
Hey, I was going to ask too about Black Bolt. Is he an older Marvel character? I mean, he's been around since before this latest Inhumans X-Men thing with Marvel, right?
Yes.
He's been around a really long time.
Okay.
He was like a Kirby Fantastic Four creation.
Wow. I didn't know he went back that far.
Oh, totally. Yeah, that was way back then. That's when the original Inhumans were introduced.
Okay. Well, 3 books top my list of Marvel favorites. First is Spider-Man 16. It's probably always be on my list as long as Bendis and Pichelli are doing it. Always a fun book. Jessica Jones #8 as well. First storyline kind of wrapped up recently. Wasn't necessarily really satisfied with, I don't know, for lack of a better word, the amount of emotional weight they put into a story that ended up with, I thought, was a little bit of a smaller climax than it could have been. But I still like the feel. It's still the original art team. They're going to have to shake me. And Carol Danvers is coming up in an episode pretty soon, I believe. So Jessica Jones 8. Anybody else reading this?
Nope.
Yep, I've been reading it. I feel the same, Phil.
Okay. And then, okay, well, good. It wasn't just me. And then Hawkeye #6. I've been enjoying this latest iteration of the series. I'm actually going for a master set on this. Good creative team, good feel to the book. Nice new change in covers. I still go look back on the AHA covers of the Fraction run as being some just classic all-time covers for any series. But I like what they're doing here as well with this series. So Hawkeye 6. And I even noticed that Mitch found something for Marvel this month.
Sure. On page 104, we have a collection, a trade paperback of Dr. Aphra, Volume 1, from the Star Wars universe. This is a new character that was created during the Darth Vader series that they published. I think Darth Vader's still going on. But she's essentially an evil Han Solo, or maybe even an evil Indiana Jones, because she is an archaeologist of some sort. And she helped Darth Vader in a plot against the Emperor to basically, overthrow the Emperor. And the Emperor was obviously impressed by that, which is why Darth Vader got to continue being his apprentice. But Dr. Aphra is, as much as Darth Vader kind of grew to respect her and kind of enjoy her company, she's still a loose end that he has to take care of. So this is kind of her on the run from Darth Vader. and she has a evil bounty hunter Wookiee with her, and basically evil C-3PO and evil R2-D2 travel along with her as well. It's
Those
kind
two,
of a
those two are the best.
yeah.
000 and BT1.
Yeah, all they talk about is murdering humans. It's pretty fun.
That's all they want to do is murder humans.
Is this series their first appearance, or have they been around before?
They
It's
were-
the first that I know of in
they
the
were
Darth
hanging-
Vader series.
Yeah, they hung out with her in the Darth Vader series. So
Oh, okay.
she has like a knack of reprogramming droids as well. Isn't that right, Mitch?
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons Darth Vader wanted her, because he wanted to restart the old battle droid army from the prequels, and that was going to be his army that he was going to use to take over the Empire. So he needed somebody who could do that, help him do it anyway. So it's fun anyway. If you like the Star Wars universe and you don't know who this character is, I'd say give her a try, because she's a really fun character. I enjoy her a lot.
Nice, and it might be even worth it just for the evil droids.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed too the date. They're trying to sneak in an advanced solicit on us here. This isn't out till June.
Ah, yeah, there you go. June 21st. I never checked those solicit dates.
Well,
I just looked at the book.
I don't either. Yeah, same here. I'm just noticing it now. So sometimes they're really good about it, saying advanced solicit, but other times, okay, Marvel. Well, hey guys, guess what? That wraps up the Premier Publishers section of previews. So next we'll turn our attention to the back half of the catalog. This is home of the miscellaneous indie and miscellaneous merchandise sections. We'll start by talking indie comics. Now this section is probably as big as all the Premier publishers that combined that we just did. Now that means it's like lightning striking when we share picks from this section, but Mitch and Raphael did it twice. So let's go to the first one. Guys, what drew you to Pestilence #1?
Wow, where to start here? So first of all, it's from Aftershock Comics, which is kind of the new up-and-coming comics publisher out there. I think they're trying to be like a new Image in a way, because they've got a lot of cool creator-owned stuff. And I learned about them through Marguerite Bennett. She has a title with Aftershock Comics called Animosity.
Mm-hmm.
It's the one where the animals gain sentience.
Yep.
So I was kind of on the lookout at Aftershock Comics just to see what they've got, and this looked like a really interesting take, because I'm a big fan of alternate history, and this is basically taking the plague, the Black Death, and turning it into a zombie virus and having essentially knights versus zombies, which is always fun.
I think I read the brief description, and as soon as I got to the whole but what if it was zombies instead, I was like, well, that's it, I'm sold. I'm going to be buying this, and I'm really going to enjoy it. Also, the little cover that they have, I didn't notice until right now, but that knight's got one hell of a lazy eye on the right hand side. And this is actually right on the heels of the new For Honor game that just came out, and I'm definitely Team Knight, so this looks like the exact kind of thing that I wanted right now.
That's cool. And Aftershock will come up again here in a few minutes.
It'd be cool if For Honor had a zombie mode.
That would be incredible. I think that's what the game needs right now, actually. Just to blow off steam.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Mitch, what others did you have?
Let's see. On page 294 from Avatar Press, we have Providence hardcover Act 2. This is more H.P. Lovecraft weirdness from Alan Moore and Jason Burrows. I collected the first hardcover, and it was a really sort of exquisite hardcover, so I'm hoping this one is of similar quality.
So you got that already?
Yep.
I'm coming in it.
It's really good. And the story is it's slow. It's a slow burn, but that's H.P. Lovecraft inspired stories for you. But it is very good. It's well written.
I got all 12 floppies, so I kind of was battling with whether or not I wanted to get these again in hardcover. Now I'm wishing I had.
Yeah, and it's a little pricey, but I think it's worth it. I don't know if it's worth it to buy it again if you already have the 12. But.
See, and here's the thing: as the floppies came out, they keep coming out with variant after variant after variant of each issue. So not only do they have variants of the floppies, but now they're coming out with a number of collections. Granted, as it says here down at the bottom, they only do this once. So this will, and that's the appeal to me. But my guess is too that once they're done doing that, I wonder if they'll come out with a hardcover with all 12. Which is kind of what I'm waiting for.
I also wanted to give a small shout out to Alan Moore's Necronomicon. There's a trade paperback of that being published as well.
Precursor to this, right?
Yeah, yep. More Lovecraftian weirdness. Let's see, and then my final pick on page 385 from Nation Books is Rise of the Dungeon Master. You know, if anyone who's played Dungeons and Dragons or any kind of role-playing game, I think owes a debt to Gary Gygax, the creator of Dungeons and Dragons. And so this is basically his life story in comic book form. So I thought that was very cool. Very cool crossover between a couple of my hobbies.
All right.
And I think that's it.
Okay. Raphael, you had several as well?
Yep. The first one that I have up is Dark Souls Tales of Ember #2. If you guys remember me talking about this, the first series was Dark Souls Tales of the Flame, and that was actually a just a two comic release that was kind of like a collection of Dark Souls mini stories that kind of acted as like an anthology. So each issue you had maybe came with like about 3 or 4 stories. But each one was such kind of like a delicious little snippet of the Dark Souls universe, which if you're not too familiar with it, it's just kind of really medieval, really dark, and kind of like full of monsters. And the stories really kind of just everything about the universe. It was really dark. It was really bleak. It was kind of like reading kind of like a medieval Twilight Zone. All the authors did such a good job, and I was really disappointed that it was only kind of it was only a 2-issue run. So to see that they're doing another little collection of these stories, I think is going to be really great. I haven't picked up the first issue just yet. I think it comes out this month. But this is a huge recommendation for me, even if you haven't played the games. Dark Souls is a kind of an interesting universe because at this point there's no real kind of like established story that anyone really knows. There's like little like bits that they tell you, but a real common consensus of what the games are about. So to actually be able to just pick up the comic and get like a nice slice of kind of like a weird fantasy like short stories, it's definitely a unique pick, and I'm definitely gonna be grabbing both issues. They're just they're so fun to read. And then I believe I did have one more pick, which is Warhammer Revelations #7. The Warhammer series that they're putting out right now, it's a little confusing because it is kind of ongoing. So for example, like this is technically #7 in the run, but it's part 3 of 4 of the story that they're currently doing right now. And what really has me kind of interested in this title is that Warhammer has like a really kind of big and diverse universe. The Warhammer property has been around since I think maybe the 70s. So there's been like quite a bit of time for them to kind of, get like a really interesting background. And the universe is almost too big to kind of put in comic book form. But they're doing a really good job by keeping it kind of like ongoing and just giving you little snippets every now and then. This cover specifically features the Eldar Harlequins, which are basically space elves who are servants of something called the Laughing God. So they're just they're really cool characters that don't pop up too often. But the way they're described is that basically one Harlequin will kind of walk into like an active battlefield and kill an entire army by himself. So to see a character like that finally brought into like a visual medium, I think is really fun and kind of a neat idea. So if you guys are fans of Warhammer, definitely pick it up. But even if you guys don't know anything about it, it's a great intro to the universe. So still gets my recommendation.
Did Warhammer begin as a tabletop game?
It actually began as a RPG. I think it was called Space Hulk back then. But it eventually evolved into a tabletop game, and now there are books and several video games. So it's definitely a property that's kind of been a little bit of everywhere at this point.
I bought a Warhammer rule book, I guess you would say, way back in the day, thinking it was a role-playing game, and it ended up being a tabletop game, which ultimately I didn't play, but it gave me an introduction into kind of the rules and the game mechanics of such a thing. So I've always been impressed with Warhammer World, and oh my gosh, all the figures that are out there for the game itself.
And it's still I think the way it's described, it's the most successful war game to ever be created. Of course, that's the way they describe it on its actual website. But you know, it's been around so long, and they're actually still producing new miniatures for it. You know,
I played the tabletop one time, and it was such a massive endeavor that I was
sure.
You know, I was appreciative that the person who had all the miniatures let me play, but it's like such an amazing effort just to put one battle together. It's kind of crazy.
And my guess is no such thing as a quick game.
Well, there's actually they've kind of tried to remedy that in the past few years. They've kind of developed new rules. The game kind of gets an update every like year or two, and it's just kind of like a new edition, sort of with like Dungeons and Dragons. But now they've introduced something called Kill Team, where you literally play with maybe like 12 or 15 miniatures, and that's it. For people who don't want to spend, thousands of dollars collecting little toy soldiers and then painting them. So.
Sure. Yeah, and I would say too, that's maybe half the appeal for a lot of the people, is they enjoy that aspect of it too. It's not just a game; it's also a miniature hobbyist's dream come true. Okay. I just had an odd sound in my ear. We all here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Alrighty. Well, then I had two picks, both from a publisher, Mitch and Raphael already mentioned, and that it's Aftershock, of course. Both of these I mentioned, I think, last previews, or I certainly ordered them on my last month's order form. First is Eleanor in the Egret, #2. This is from John Layman, author of Chew. Although it was Sam Keith who did the Max that was the initial draw for me. So anything with the two of them, I'm really going to be interested in. And the fact that Aftershock has them, well, credit to them. Next, I also had World Reader. They're billing this as something that fans of, what do they say there? The Arrival, Interstellar, and The Expanse will like. Well, that's me on all three accounts. So I'm in. Again, too early to say. I haven't seen issue 1 yet. And this is, I think, a 6-issue mini. This one is. But anyway, really interested in seeing what this comes in with. Do you guys recognize the names there? Jeff Loveness. I see the words. He's from Groot and the Jimmy Kimmel show writer. I don't know if...
Not familiar.
Evidently not. Well, we're about to be. So that wraps up then our reading material, but no preview show would be complete if we didn't also talk about our picks from the miscellaneous merchandise section. Mitch and Raphael, once again, lightning struck. They share a choice here as well. So tell us about this Aliens life-size replica, guys.
Well, let me first start off by saying that I have always wanted one of these, so I think I will buy one with my tax refund, because this thing is quite expensive.
I will be the Vasquez to your Drake.
Yeah. We should come to the next podcast fully armored up.
Absolutely.
If you guys are familiar with the movies, especially, I think it really only kind of premiered in Aliens. The smart gun is kind of like the giant kind of heavy machine gun that the Marines carry around with them. It's made several appearances in video games and stuff like that, but this is a life-size replica weighing in at 15 pounds, made from resin and fiberglass. So it's definitely going to be an interesting collector's piece. Putting it on a shelf would be pretty cool, but it might be a little too heavy for that.
Yeah, I think you'd have to have some kind of special display to put this on, and especially for the price. You'd want to put it somewhere that's protected. Oh,
I don't think it's included in the age. It's a little over $1,000. I think it's like $1,200 to pick this up.
I was gonna say, for that price, that thing better fire something.
Well, I was kind of hoping it would come with like LEDs or something. Like it would either light up or.
Looks like a plug right there, right? In that picture.
Part of just the gun design, because I know that it's like semi-electrical
design.
when they're actually carrying it in the movie. It's supposed to like aim itself.
I see. So it plugs into some kind of power pack.
Yeah, one of the cool things about this is if you watch the making of the movie, they talk about this gun in particular. And basically, it's a real World War II era German submachine gun that they just slapped a bunch of motorcycle parts onto.
I can kind of see that now that you say something.
Wow.
Yeah, so if you look at the gun design, you can see the back end is the trigger, and that's essentially a motorcycle handbrake. And
Yeah,
the front side,
that totally is a motorcycle brake.
the front side is there's like a suspension from some kind of motorcycle, and another hand grip with a digital control on it. So it's kind of interesting to see how they used to make old school props like that.
I didn't notice
I
it
dare
before,
say
but
they
I
still
think
do
it
it these days.
I think it says adios on the top, so I'm guessing this belongs to Vasquez.
Oh yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, hey, Randy, you sat quietly through the indie comics section. What'd you find?
On page 493 is a really cool Star Wars T-shirt. It's called the Fire Away Luke. I don't know. I just always liked this image from Star Wars Episode 4, the Stay on Target. So
That's
makes-
crazy. I almost picked that one too.
it makes for a good T-shirt. I think anybody would look good in that. And then the other thing I found, which I thought was pretty cool, was on page 603, and it's I don't know, it's just real enough to be funny. I think I would actually put this on my car. It's a Nelson and Murdoch Attorneys at Law bumper sticker, bringing you justice without fear.
A previews exclusive.
So that's pretty cool.
Mark's getting a little bit of the packaging there too in the screenshot on the right.
Yeah,
that was clever. I liked it. Nice and legitimate looking. Mitch, you also found some goodies.
Yeah, I'm not usually too interested in the merchandise area, but they had a lot of cool models and stuff this time around, including on page 586. They had a whole list of Star Wars scale model kits. Everything from the AT-AT to the X-wing and TIE fighter and all that stuff. So I know most of us here play the X-wing miniature game, so we kind of get our model fix from that. But if you want just models to have in display, these are some really good ones.
and then come up with your own cards and play them in the game.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, I should say I had just picked one model, but in the previews on page 586, you'll see a whole bunch of different designs there. Those were interesting.
And then they also had a lot of cool clothes and other kind of things. So I picked out one, which is on page, what am I looking at here? Page 606, Legend of Zelda backpacks. They had a couple of different ones. And the new game just came out, so a lot of people might be looking for Zelda merchandise, and these backpacks are pretty cool. They look like something you could really strap on and go adventuring with. And on the next page, they actually had some cool stuff that I want to give honorable mention to, which are some Rogue One merchandise for the ladies. They got some purses and handbags with the Rogue One symbols on them. They're pretty cool too.
That's good. Nice. Raphael, wrap up the miscellaneous section for us.
All right, on page 500, I saw a really cool Star-Lord jacket. I always like the red leather look, and I thought it'd be really cool just to pick one up. They also have a mask on the same page that has like light up LEDs and stuff like that. So really cool if you're into cosplay. But I just wear this to the store. I'd wear this to like go get groceries because I think it looks so cool. Next up is a model kit from Bandai, and I actually think it's really funny that all of us are kind of syncing up because same company that makes those Star Wars miniatures that Mitch was just talking about. So if you go to their website, they're actually side by side on the same page. But this is a 1/100 scale model kit of the Providence Gundam, which is the big bad from Gundam Seed, the first season. And they actually never produced one when they were doing kind of like the run of all like the giant mechs from Gundam Seed. And a lot of people didn't like that. So Bandai decided to finally, a few years later, come out with a really nice 1/100 scale version of it. And if you pay a little bit extra money, you can get a special first edition variant, which comes with a little base that it stands on in the shape of a Zaft crest. So definitely something cool that we haven't seen in a while, and time that they're doing anything like a special first release kind of thing. So pick them up while you can.
Took me a minute to tell the difference between the two. I was like, which one did he pick on that page?
I always pick the cheaper one. Giant fiberglass replicas of smart guns.
Well, that leaves you more money for your alien replica gun. All right. That then, we'll wrap things up. Based on the selections our panelists submitted before the show, here's some of this month's numbers stacked up. Hopefully at least a few of the items that we recommended are things that you found interesting and might not have otherwise been aware of. I'd like to thank our panelists for going through this month's 600-plus page issue of previews, and we'll link things down to just a few favorites lists. Let's give you guys a chance to make any last-minute shout-outs. Tell us where you can be found. Mitch?
Hi, this is Mitch. You can find me on Twitter at Zebu_Nation or on YouTube where I make Let's Play videos of video games.
All right. Raphael, what you been up to?
Hello, everybody. This has been Raphael. If you need me, you can find me outside of Summit. I will be panhandling for enough money to buy myself an alien smart gun.
And Randy, when you're not wielding Thor's hammer, where can we find you?
Hey, this is Randy. You can find me online with the username Silent Flick in most places. And I signed up for the Fortnite Film Festival, so I'll be making
neat.
A movie here in Lansing coming up soon.
Cool. Well, watch for links to that at our website. I'll make sure to, if there's such a thing to share, we'll be sharing it. Again, then, thanks to our sponsor, Summit Comics and Games in downtown Lansing, Michigan. And if you haven't already, we invite you to tune into our regular podcast, where we appear twice a month with all your favorite podcatchers. That includes episode 72, which should be out right about the time you're watching this, where we discuss the movie Logan, and episode 73 out 2 weeks later on March 27th. And of course, we'll be right back here in 1 month on April 3rd for another episode of This Month in Previews to talk about all the comics that turn our heads to watch out for this June. Until then, I'm Phil, your host. Thanks for tuning in, and here's to good comics.